First thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the laptop over. We're going to get to the battery on back. We're going to release the lock on the battery, and we're going to release the latch on it and just take the battery out and set it aside. Now we're going to turn it over so that we're going to take off the cover to get to the hard drive. There's two screws, one on the left and one on the right, and just unscrew them. I'm using a little electric power driver here. It has very low torque. It doesn't put any torque on the screws at all. Just unscrew those. Now you're going to end up removing there. You're going to just slide it straight back to you. It comes out, and there you have your RAM on the right and the hard drive on the left. You have 4 screws for the hard drive. Just go ahead and undo those. And I did keep my 4 screws for the hard drive with the hard drive. I put them into a little plastic Ziploc bag. That way I keep track of them, don't lose them. And once you get this unscrewed, you're going to just push straight to the left on top of the hard drive, and it's just going to come undocked from the SATA connections right there. Push straight to the left. You see it slide back, lift up and out, and I just then, as I say, I just put that into a plastic bag with the screws. Now here we've got about 16 or so different screws from the back of this laptop, and most of them are all the same. Now there's about 3 or 4 different sets that are going to be different. I'm going to warn you about those, but all these across the back, just put them in the same pile. I use Ziploc bags to keep track of everything, that way I don't lose anything. Helps me. I can use a Sharpie and write on the Ziploc bag. These are the back screws or whatever. Some people have muffin tins that let you put little labels or something, and that way you can keep things separated. These screws that are so deep, what you need to do is get them loose, and then you're going to carefully turn over the laptop and let them just drop out onto your workbench. Don't let them fall to the ground and lose them. But that's kind of a strategy that I used. Now that screw right there is a very short and different screw, the one that's right in the middle behind the hard drive. Notice how short it was. Notice I set it aside on its own. I recommend you do the same. And here again, we're just moving on with the other 15 or 16 screws that is holding this thing together. Now on this end, we've actually got a couple of sets of screws that are very different. That one that I'm doing right there, that's on the corner, that one is different, not the rest of these. So on the corners, you've got a deep set screw and then a little tiny screw on the corner itself, both left and right corners. Each of those is unique, and I would recommend you keep that one right there. That's going to be unique, I believe. And also that little corner screw, that's what I'm talking there. It's like the inner ones are bigger than the others, and the little tiny corner screws are smaller than the others, so those are unique. All right, and tap a little bit gently to get those out of those deep well socket screw holes, and set those aside. So moving on, we're now going to take off the keyboard. This is where you just use a straight blade screwdriver, and you just have 4 tabs across the top of it that you just push back on the tab, and the keyboard will lift up slightly. Now it's a little finesse needed, because as you do this, you realize, well, those other tabs are keeping it in place. And it's kind of like taking a bicycle tire off. You want to get something, a little flat screwdriver or a popsicle stick or something, to slip under there once you get this up a little bit. See how I'm trying to hold my fingernail in there to keep it so that it doesn't just go back down and lock itself back into place. So as you go across the keyboard, getting all 4, you're going to just unlatch and unhook. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple, not a lot of pressure. You do want to be nice and gentle on this. Nice and gentle is probably a good philosophy when working with laptops or computers in general. And you see I got that up, and we're just going to come back again just with one more little touch with the screwdriver, just to make sure they're all released and they're all good to go. And you can see it's working. It's doing great. Just be gentle, take your time. Don't rush, don't brutalize it. And there we go. We're going to get that last one. And then we're going to have where I can show you. There we go. Just a little finesse. Once you've got them all released, you literally lift it up. There's a ribbon cable underneath. Don't pull real hard. Don't jerk on it. Now this is a little clamp for the ribbon cable that it's a plastic piece that in this case we're going to push it to the right. That little black band moves to the right. It just slides and it stays in place. It won't come off. There you go. That removes the cable. Be gentle with the cable. Set the keyboard aside. Now we have about 6 or 7 screws, and one of them is going to be different. Most of these screws are holding the metal part of the laptop to the motherboard underneath. One screw, however, is actually holding the CD/DVD drive in place. And it's not that one. It's another one that we're going to do. It's that one right there. Now you notice, you think, well, now that screw is also different. The DVD-CD drive screw is a little different. So when you pull out that DVD-CD drive, put the screw with it, put it into a plastic bag and tape it to the DVD drive, whatever. But that's going to be a unique screw, and you're going to want to keep that separate just for that. So again, just take all these screws out. All the rest of them, except for the CD DVD drive screw, are the same as the ones you pulled out of the back. It's all the same. Now here we have a little tape. It helps cover an electrical connection. Again, this is a little tricky. This is again one of those push on and notice it just comes off. This is unique to this motherboard or to this laptop, where these pieces literally come off. Now this one didn't. This one is hinged, and you have to, from the right, get under it and pop it up. And that's what I'm trying to show you here in this. That is the power switch ribbon cable. So obviously you want to be careful. Here we've taken the screw out, we're pulling out the DVD-CD drive, and keep that little screw with it. Now we're starting to pop this apart because it does just snap apart, but I realized as I started doing this, there's actually 3 more screws that I haven't taken apart that are in the CD-DV drive slot. And these are also very unique screws. These are just like the one that was in the middle of the back behind the hard drive. Very short, little stubby things. Keep those separate, keep those unique, put them into another little Ziploc and label it. Here I'm using a little spudger, a little plastic tool to pop apart the top and bottom of the laptop. This is clamshell kind of thing. And it's just plastic. It just comes along, it unsnaps all those little snap connections, and it lets you get this apart, and there it is. It lifts up, and Shazam, Houston, we have a motherboard. Here's another electrical contact. This is for a ribbon cable for the USB connections on the right hand side of the computer. Again, this black connector will come off, so when you get that off, watch out. Here's a little electrical connector we're taking off up near the video cable. Be very careful with that video cable. I messed up mine when I did this the first time, and I had to order another one just to replace it because I wasn't careful when putting it back in and I crushed it. So it was only about a $5 part, but it was a pain in the neck to realize that I had messed up. So here, I recommend that you actually take a picture with your cell phone if you can, or a camera or something, of the motherboard before you take these screws out. Now there's about 6 chrome, and the rest are the standard black screws that we've seen all along. And I failed to take a picture of it, so I guessed where the chrome ones went. They are slightly different. They can be interchanged, but they are slightly different. I got mine to go back together and work, so I'm happy, but just word of wise, you be smarter than me. Take a picture so you know exactly where they go and where they're going to go back into. Here we're just finishing up. As I say, we've got about 6 or 8, maybe 10 screws holding the motherboard to the back of the case. And you also have one that's up and to the left of where that fan is. Watch out for that. Here we're going to start to take this out and realize that the video cable is taped to the fan. So we have to take that off and just there you go, untape that. And then the whole thing comes out. And Shazam, we just have one last thing to do, and that is to take the fan and the CPU cooler off. And so I used, again, my little handy screwdriver, and I just do an X pattern on these screws, get them loose to start with, and then go ahead and take them all the way out. This, obviously, you're going to need some thermal paste when you put this back together. You're going to want to clean the connection, the contacts between the cooler and the CPU with isopropyl alcohol, and get it all nice and clean, and then put on some new thermal paste. And here we're just taking these little screws out. Keep those separate, keep them so you know where they are. And we also have an electrical connection on the motherboard. Gently pull that off, and the whole thing comes off. And now, obviously, to put it back together is reverse. Here we're working on the screen. There is a screw on the bottom left and bottom right corner of the screen. You have to use a little straight blade screwdriver to pop a little rubber tab out of the way, and then you can get to that one screw on either side. Once you've done that, you can then use a spudger to pop apart the bezel. It just snaps apart. Here I use a little tiny screwdriver to help me get in there in that little tiny space to make a little bit more room so I get that plastic piece in there, and I can open up that bezel and snap it open. Be careful, this is a flimsy piece of plastic, and I actually cracked mine. You'll see me do it here when we get down near the end. But it worked, and I was able to put it back together. But be smarter than me and have better luck. You'll see I'm just, take your time, be gentle, smooth, moving along, and as you work all the way around, you'll get down to the bottom, And that's where at the bottom it's snapped together across the middle in the bottom, and that's where I didn't know that, and I cracked mine. So be sure, and you can't get the spudger in there because the case is in the way or whatever, but you can reach down in there. Oop, there we go. See, I cracked it right there. You can go ahead and you can just with your fingers get down in the middle. There you go. Be nice, be gentle to it. Be smarter than I was. And there you go. You're going to pull that thing up and out of the way. Now you have full access to all the screws. And here we jump ahead. You know, sometimes you're doing these videos to try and help people, but you're also doing the work to try and get this done. And it slips your mind. You get ahead of yourself, and you don't get the videos, you don't get the shots of taking it out. Well, here I've got the shots of putting it back together. So the screen, the new screen, what there is there's a little metal, flimsy metal frame around the screen. You're seeing me put the new screen in that flimsy metal frame. So we missed out on unplugging the video cable, but here's plugging into the video cable in the back of the new screen. The other end goes into the motherboard, as you can imagine. And here's where we just get it into place and then use this long piece of tape that's attached to it to pull it into place and then tape it into place. So now, and I didn't get any video of putting the electrical connection in or the camera, the webcam in, but you'll see that and you'll do that on your own. Here's where we're just screwing the hinge back together and getting these last support screws so that the screen is attached to the back of the screen. And then once we get all these screws in and we get everything put into place, then we will snap that bezel back on top, and we'll just have a screw on the bottom left and bottom right to put on. And here we go. We're just doing the top now. It's really pretty straightforward, and as you do this, you're going to be impressed with how straightforward and simple it is. Now with these, you need to make sure that you're leaving the one screw hole open that lines up with the plastic bezel so that when the plastic bezel snaps on, you can put the screw through the bezel into the receiver there and screw it on. And here we go. Shazam, don't you love it when stuff works? I sure do. I always say that little computer prayer which goes something like, sure hope this works. And in this case it did. As I say, I did have challenges with my original video cable that I damaged, but I ordered another one for like $5 off of eBay. It came, it worked, and I was sure not to crush it.